In my world there is music and good vibes and laughter and lovers, adventure and friendship. We know who we are.
Welcome to Be the Wellness Podcast, where we help you master your body, mind, and the experience of life through insightful conversation, interviews with experts and thought leaders, all with a side of marital banter and some good old-fashioned humor.
Yes, we are your hosts, Adam and Vanessa Lambert, and we're committed to helping you live life fully expressed physically, mentally, and experientially. Sit back, grab a cup of coffee, and join the conversation.
Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the podcast. Adam and Vanessa Lambert here with a pair of guests.
A dynamic duo.
It's not super often that we interview another
couple
podcasting duo.
It's true. This is kind of like a double date.
It is.
In a way.
Who else? So Mike and Kate show, we were on their show.
Yes, we were.
That's the only other
podcasting duo.
Couple that we know.
Yeah. So we're more rare than you think.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's really exciting. We're having Conner and Kelli on today, who you folks we've heard Conner on our podcast twice before. And Kelli, of course, is his love, his new partner in crime, and just a lovely addition to his world as well as ours. So we're just really excited. They have an amazing new project called Soulfire Productions, which is a new production company that's helping people get their podcast launched and out there, and a whole support system for getting people, really up and running in this podcast world, which can be overwhelming. It can be daunting, and it can be a ton of work. So they have this sort of suite that it just is literally from start to finish will get you up and running and boosting your podcast and getting you listens and getting you sponsors, and just an amazing opportunity for folks who are interested in that world.
Right. Yeah. Because there's actually a lot of ways to do this wrong.
There
you know what I mean? That's almost infinite.
There is.
And a very small set of ways to do it right. And that's what they'll help you do.
Yeah. And they're literally podcasting pros. I mean, Kelli has her own show called The Kelli Show. They have a show together called Okay Babe. Conner has his show, Conner Wanders, and I think he also has
The Realness. I'm not sure what's going on with The Realness.
Let's actually look really quick. He also has, so he's got the Realness and Conner Wanders. So he's got both of those shows going on. So between them, there's a lot of podcasting expertise, and between their shows, you've got a whole array of topics and sort of things that they dive into, and they're really just kind of crushing it at this whole thing.
Yeah, they're really nailing that aspect of it. And then on the flip side of it all, they are super interesting people who are just up to cool shit in the world. They're hilarious both in their own right, and then together, it's just a whole nother dynamic.
It is. Yeah. And when we're looking at their bio, it's talking about, Kelli and Conner met through their podcast, bonded over ayahuasca, and fell in love through voice notes. And it kind of goes on, and really this bio, when you're reading it, what you really realize is that they have just been completely upfront and honest, and sharing their process of falling in love, all of these new peak experiences together. We'll get into some of those today. Also talking about the pitfalls of a relationship, and even what they refer to as being monogamish, and just, really what it means to be in a sort of new paradigm with relationships, and how people are creating them in new and interesting ways now, and some of the pitfalls that come along with that, and the highs and lows, and really just the honest to goodness truth of what it has looked like for them to create the relationship that they're up to. Yeah.
And it's really refreshing to hear people just talk just that blatant and honest about how the whole thing goes, what sucks, what doesn't suck, and how ultimately I think that integrity at the end of the day is what makes it all work, And they've got a cool story, and they're fun to talk to.
Yeah, they're super fun. And we were on their podcast a few weeks ago. So if you haven't had a chance to go over and check out Okay Babe, maybe you can turn into our podcast that we just, I think it released 2 weeks ago, or actually by the time this comes out, might be 3 weeks or so. So anyway, we are super excited to have them on the show. Before we get to that, we want to talk about something near and dear to our heart, which is
Coffee.
Coffee.
Yay,
So
coffee.
it's kind of interesting, both Adam and I quit drinking coffee a little over a year ago. And it's been in the last couple of months since we've been here in Northern California. We've had COVID going on, so we've been in shelter in place. We've had lots and lots of downtime, lots of amazing sleep, lots of connection to nature. And we found that coffee kind of just sort of came back in and wasn't creating some of the issues that it had previously been creating, which was just kind of like a little bit too much anxiety, a little bit too much stress, just kind of a little bit too much pressure on our central nervous systems. And it's been so fun to kind of enjoy coffee again and bring it back into the fold. And so we sort of got re-excited and rejuvenated about our coffee company, about our offerings. And
we're bringing it back.
And we're bringing it back.
Because like basically what happened with this whole thing was we were so stoked about the coffee. And basically, if you guys remember, I mean, we go back and we visit all of these areas that are like major coffee producers in the world. And in fact, like when we were in Peru and when we were in Africa, we actually see the places that are producing this coffee. I mean, if you get it from the right place, you can legitimately be changing the lives of people that live on the side of a mountain in the Andes who sell their, 5 or 6 acres of coffee into a small collective.
Right.
And it's insane. Like you have direct access to helping people earn their way in the world through something that you are going to drink anyway, probably, right? So why not make the choice to get stuff that is coming from someplace like that, right?
And furthermore, like the flavor profile literally transports you back to that experience. And, it's been really interesting given that we're not able to travel physically. We've been able to travel through taste and aroma and kind of remember those moments and memories. And it's been really cool. We just, have brought in some new flavors and some new locations that we are starting to roast and offer as well, including the Kenyan coffee, including the Ugandan coffee that's out of CP Falls. When Adam and I ran our Africa retreat, we stayed after and went into Uganda, did the trekking with the gorillas. So like these are literally the places we love, we know, and have been parts of our journeys and our adventures that we're bringing back into the fold. Yeah,
totally. And so so of course we still have our Colombian coffee and the Peruvian half calf, which has been super popular. And we're bringing in Kenyan, which is a light roast, one from Brazil, a Brazilian Santos, which is technically medium, but it's pretty light roast and it's fantastic. And then, of course, the Uganda. And, the deal is with our coffee and our coffee roaster, and part of the reason why we connected with them is that the guy, Brian, who is our coffee roaster, he and his brother own a coffee importing company. So and it's one of the only coffee importing companies in California. And so Brian has direct relationships with the places that he buys the coffee from. And he has got a incredibly high moral and ethical standard for how they do business. And it's a huge part of why we chose to partner with them to provide these coffees. A, they get coffees from the regions that we think are, amazing and places that we go. And B, it's Brian and his brother that are going and dealing with these people and developing these relationships with the farmers. And it's direct to their importer in LA and from their importer to his roasting house in Temecula and then straight out to you guys.
Yes.
And it's his, if you want to talk about supporting businesses that support micro agriculture around the world. This is almost as direct as you can get.
Right.
You know what I mean? It's
and
3 steps.
Yeah. It's like if if you're interested in farm to table food, this is a similar dynamic. This is a similar idea, is that it's not these huge conglomerates that, these beans are sitting in warehouses for months at a time and, roasted 6 months prior to the time it gets to you and all of that kind of stuff. I mean, this is literally getting roasted. They roast on Mondays and Wednesdays. And so depending on when you place your order, you're literally getting freshly roasted coffee delivered direct to your door.
Yep. That's what's up.
It's pretty amazing.
And it's fantastic.
Yeah.
It's good stuff. And we got brand new labels, which are cool.
Yeah.
Got
our
logo,
new logo
all the
on
stuff
there.
on there. Yeah.
We got cool shit happening.
So go down. Go down. We'll put a link below in the show notes. You can just go check out the coffees that are out there and give them a shot.
Yeah, absolutely.
Stuff. You're going to drink coffee anyway. You might as well drink this coffee.
You are. And if you love it, you can also sign up for a subscription and then it'll just auto deliver to your door at the interval that you set up. So if it's something that, you want to just make sure you're always in stock and you're always getting it freshly roasted, you can put it on auto ship and set it and forget it.
Yep, totally. Yeah. And then pro tip, we'll talk about this more at some point soon. Add L-theanine to your coffee.
Ooh.
250 milligrams.
This is our new hack.
Bam.
All
hack.
Right. Yeah.
Without further ado,
here's Kelli and Conner.
Cool. We are rolling. Welcome back to the podcast, Conner, and welcome for the first time, Kelli.
Thank you.
Glad to be back. I always love podcasting with you guys.
You know what's so funny too? This is one of the first shows I ever heard Conner on, and that was my first introduction to you guys. And I just thought you had the best conversation. And I was falling in love with him. So there's that. But I was like, oh my God, I love them so much. They're amazing.
Oh, that's amazing. That's so funny. I know. And like the way that Conner came into our lives was just like literally popped up down the street one day and just like walked over and we were like, ooh, we love you. And then when you came, I was like, ooh, we love her. So this is just so awesome to like, I don't know, just to hang out with you guys, just to hear your voices and just, I don't know, there's something about as soon as I heard both of your voices, I felt so comforted. I was like,
we're happy to be here.
Yeah, awesome. It's so sweet. So, I was thinking about you guys before we went live and I was like, what do we want to talk about? And the thing that popped into my head was, and Kelli, you kind of just mentioned that you were falling in love with Conner. Like, I don't know the full story. What is the origin story? Like, how did this romance happen?
It all started with an email.
Really?
Yeah. So I got this email from Kelli's team. And the first line was, local celebrity Kelli Tennant would make a great guest for your podcast. And it was actually on my birthday. I got this email.
Oh, nice.
I was like, and I get these emails all the time.
Right.
But for whatever reason, I felt like kind of clapping back with this one. So I just I just responded like such a smart ass.
He was such a jerk.
I wasn't. Because you get all these emails, and I just took where I started thinking like I wouldn't want to be ignored if I was these people, so I'll just respond to them. And I kind of gave them the rundown of like, hey, here's it doesn't seem like from my investigation of this person they really are a good fit for my show because it was so like sunshine and rainbows and whatever feel good stuff. And I was like, I just don't feel like this is a good fit. But here's kind of the rundown. If she's willing to do a show swap and we'll be on each other's shows and I only do my shows in person, and kind of gave the whole rundown. And
he created a lot of obstacles.
Yes, I did. I was like, if she really wants to,
she really has got to work for this.
But then Kelli responded to that.
Well, because my assistant sent it to me and she was like, what do you want me to do with this? Because no one had ever been such a jerk. So I was like, oh, I got this. So I respond back with quoting him from his show because I had listened to at least 4 or 5 episodes at that point because I had found him because of ayahuasca. I was about to go on my first ceremony trip. And so I had listened to his show to learn more about ayahuasca. And so I'm quoting him. I'm saying cuss words. I'm like, let's fucking do this. And I'm happy to come to San Diego. Like, when can we record? And what were you like blown away? Like, oh shit, I have to do this now?
Yeah, I was surprised. I was obviously surprised. Yeah, it was funny. It was a very solid response. And then of course we start like talking on Instagram. And we actually don't even have a proper phone call until 2 months kind of after we met. And that was when the podcast was supposed to be scheduled. But we decided to meet. We had this is very cute. We were like going back and forth with voice messaging. which I'd never really used before. But we would send, it was a really interesting way to get to know each other because we'd have, 3 to 5 minutes of just talking without anybody interrupting. So we could just go back and forth, and we would do that kind of throughout the day. But when I asked you for your number, it was really funny too. Because we've been talking a lot on Instagram, and I was like, hey, can I just have your number? And you just said no.
I just, no, period. And that was it. And I let it breathe. And I was like, oh my God, what's his response to me? This is going to be amazing. Because I was trying to be a jackass because he's always a jackass.
Right.
And he like freaked out and was like, oh, fuck, I have to have this girl on my show. And now I've offended her. And then I just responded back with my actual number and didn't say anything.
Yeah, because I was asking my friends, like, I don't know, she's talking to me a lot. Do you think she likes me? I don't know.
We're in sixth grade, in case.
Yeah, it was very much like, what is this? I would show these messages to my friends and be like, what does this mean? I don't know what to do with this. Just sent me this fucking song, and it seems very feelsy, but maybe she just thinks I like the song. I don't know.
Yeah.
And then we met up in, where did we meet up at?
So we were supposed to meet and do the podcast, but I was like already falling in love with him, and I had to meet him. And so I, 2 glasses of wine in, finally got the courage and text him to see if the following week he wanted to meet in Laguna Beach. And so the first time we met, we were on a private beach in Laguna at sunset having a little picnic, and it could not have been more adorable.
It was very cute. It was very cute.
Actually, I think I saw a post, I think Kelli, you posted a photo from this meeting recently. Yeah. And it was just like the quintessential first moment together.
Yeah. It was crazy too. When we first met, I mean, I was so nervous. I had been shaking. I had lunch with my parents that day, and they were like, we've never seen you like this. And my body was physically shaking. I didn't know what was going on. And then when I saw him in the parking lot as he was walking up, it was, I mean, the feelings that I got, I had never had before. And then when I hugged him, it was like I had come home. I was like, oh, this is my person. It was the best feeling.
Wow. Yeah. And Conner, what was that moment for you like?
It was a little bit overwhelming, to be honest with you.
Really?
So much had gone on. It was a lot of anticipation that was being built to where we had we had to meet. But that first hug, and just like watching her walk towards me, and she was all like smiley and cute in her little flowy, whatever beach cover up thing. I did a really good job of keeping my expectations at bay, but it really exceeded what I expected. Because I hadn't been in that place emotionally for myself to even consider being in a relationship. So a lot of this stuff kind of came out of left field for me, and it was almost too much to handle in certain times. But it was fun.
Really it's interesting because so we met Conner just right before we met you, Kelli. Like maybe it'd been 6 months or so, 6 or so months maybe that we'd been we'd hung a few times and connected, and the essence I remember getting from you was just a lot of conflict over like what I felt from you is that you actually really did want to be in a committed relationship, but there was like this conflict around it. And so when Kelli came into your life, I was like, attaboy, you gave it to your heart.
Bye-bye, pleasure monkey. Yeah.
And it's just cool. It's just cool because, I think that we all sort of do that until we find our person. It's like, there's just sort of something deep inside of you wants that deep connection and wants that commitment and wants that sort of soul spark. But there's that conflict of like giving up our autonomy or giving up our freedom, or there's all those stories that come along with it. And so I just think it's so cool because like Kelli has been such a perfect, you've been such a perfect fit for each other to like not have to give up who you are individually, but to actually show up even greater in your individuality together. Is that fair to say?
Yeah, I think so. And the timing really, looking back now, makes a ton of sense because when we met, I'd been single for a couple of years, which I think I really needed. Mm-hmm. I had been in enough relationships that by all rights should have worked out with really amazing women. And it just seemed like everything would always just blow up at some point. So I was a little bit jaded and I needed that time to really reset myself. Mm-hmm. And through that time got really clear on what I wanted in a relationship, which seemed very unlikely. So I kind of let myself be like, oh, this isn't going to happen probably. But if it does, that'd be great. And lo and behold, like this thing came along, and it was almost like buying scratch off tickets and always knowing you're probably not going to hit the jackpot, and then you scratch one off and you win $20,000.
Like, no way.
I didn't expect that to happen. I was just kind of out here I was just buying them for fun.
Did you just compare me and our love to a scratch off ticket?
Yeah.
Wow.
Exactly.
I definitely want to do you later.
That's amazing.
Gosh.
So what is the thing that you guys are most excited about right now? Because you both have your own podcast. You have one together called Okay Babe. And I just want to know, like, what is the most exciting part of your creation together? Or like, what is the thing you wake up every day and you're so excited to do?
Wow, that's a great question. And honestly, I think for me, it is how much space we give each other to have our own individual experiences right now. And I think a lot of that is because of, our current state and being stuck at home so much. And I think that we kind of do this dance of anxious and avoidant back and forth. And what this time has really taught us is the power of giving each other space and freedom and having a foundation of trust within that. And when we are operating in that way, I mean, our relationship is so incredible. Our communication is so good. We feel so attracted to each other. The desire is so high, and we're so productive, and we're really in our flow. And everything really feeds off of that. And I think as much as this time has been tough, and, we've had fights and we've been so annoyed at each other, and we just are like, okay, you leave the house, I'm staying here. We need some time.
Right.
As much as that is reality, every time something like that happens, the moments after or the next day, we're so much closer, and there's such an understanding and compassion for one another that we didn't have before. And what that really helps me understand is myself, because Conner and I are very similar. We have a lot of the same core wounds, and we're such mirrors and triggers for each other. And so every time something like that happens, not only do I understand him at a level I didn't know I could, but that helps me understand myself and see myself. And so I think it's been such a gift, and I wake up so excited to be able to just continue to create that space, because like I said, everything just feels like it's feeding off of that and blossoming from that place.
That's pretty awesome. Like that's, that sounds amazing. but there's something that I think is really, it's really cool, but I think there's something that's kind of unfortunately unique about what you're just describing there. And I think that Vanessa and I are fortunate enough to have kind of a similar dynamic in that we can almost like fight like brother and sister, you know what I mean? Kind of a thing, because we just know so much about each other at a level that's like that. Even, obviously we've been together for 20 something years now, but like even in the very beginning, it was like we knew each other like at a level that it was far beyond what you would get with, just some random person that you met at a bar or whatever. Right. And I don't know if that's like a past lives soul contract, some
twin
ethereal
flames,
soup thing, you know what I mean? I don't know what it is. Or if it's just like, there's just the chemistry there, like whatever that is. But I think it's super uncommon. And so I'm stoked for you guys to have that kind of, the ability to share that sort of dynamic, but then not lose like the romance of it all, right? Because that's what it seems like you see with folks, right?
You go too brother sistery.
Yeah,
it's
too
like,
brother
you
sistery.
can't go too far.
Yeah. And I think what's happened for us is, and this definitely makes both of us uncomfortable, is we see each other so clearly. And that can be really hard. And I hope Conner is okay with me sharing this, but one of the hardest things for him has been being seen in this way and being thought of so highly and believed in so much that it really causes him to turn inward and look at himself. And he does the same thing for me, the way he sees me in different ways. And so I think when you're seeing that clearly and you're that vulnerable and it's that transparent, it can be very overwhelming, but it also gives you the gift of being able to see yourself through someone else's eyes. And it helps you meet parts of yourself that you've never met before. And that's one of the greatest gifts he's ever given me, is I feel like he's helped me kind of unlock these parts of myself that I had never known were there because of the way he sees me and triggers me and is just so honest about it.
I love that. It's so beautiful. Conner, I'd love to just like I don't really have a question, but I'd love to just have you weigh in on what Kelli just shared. Yeah, just say something.
I've been holding back here. Let Kelli go on her monologues, but I think
I love it.
No, there's a lot there. I think what was really coming up for me as she was talking is one of the most frustrating things that Kelli does on a regular basis is ask me what I want, which has been really, which you wouldn't think would be that challenging, but yeah, this constant somebody observing me and knowing me and really understanding me, and then asking me what I want, and me knowing that I can't really bullshit my way out of that, because that's one of those things where it's like, yeah, I can just give you a lot of fluff, but I have to actually really think about what it is that I want and what my intentions are and what that's going to do for me and our relationship and going forward. That's been probably the most triggering thing, because people ask me that a lot, and Kelli talks a lot about triggers, but it's like, well, when do you get triggered? And I don't feel like I do that often, but that's just that what do you want statement frustrates the shit out of me. Like, it drives me crazy, but it's getting me to a place where I've had to operate, having gotten to this like podcast coaching world and being there for the past 3 or 4 years. A lot of what I've had to do is operate from a place of what do I have to do next to survive or get to the next level or do the next thing. And very rarely I've had the chance, the privilege of just saying, okay, well, what do I really want, and how do I really want to represent myself, and how can I acknowledge the way that I've changed over the past couple of years? Because if I keep doing the same thing just because it's the thing that kind of works, I'm not really doing myself any favors. And Kelli's constantly on my ass about that. And I think it's one of the things that really is an area for growth in both of our lives, just being able to have those kind of discussions.
Well, and you know what, actually, I hadn't thought of until right now when you said that, Con, is I think one of the reasons I ask him that question so often is because I did that too. Like when I was in TV and working in sports, I was doing what I had to survive, living on friends' couches, taking whatever job I could, making shit money, and then working my way up. And I kept doing it because I felt like I should, and it was the next thing I had to do. And I just kept going and going. And no one ever asked me what I wanted. And I left all that behind. I burned it to the ground and I started over. And that's when I finally realized, what do I want? How can I be fulfilled? What drives me? What's important to me? What are my core values? And I think that I see you in that space where we have the space to have that conversation. And I think my innate response is, okay, what do you want? Because now I know what I want. And I've asked myself that, and people have asked me that now. And I know that's just not something that's necessarily come up for you.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Well, the thing that's occurring to me as I'm hearing you talk about this is that I think people also do ask themselves what they want, but immediately after they ask the question, there's all of this like fluffer that fills in about like what they should want or what's realistic, or kind of like, all right, well, I might want this, but I can't see how that would actually happen for me. So what's like some version of it that I can settle on? And so I'm just curious for you guys, especially being in this world where you're sort of helping people navigate this stuff as coaches, like how do you help people distinguish what they want from what they think they're supposed to want?
Oh man, that's a fun one. Because I think a lot of it has to do with, I look at it almost like this energetic audit, right? This is what I do with my clients on step one. Call number one is, let's take an inventory of your life and look at like, where are you putting your energy? Where is most of your energy going? Or as I like to say it, like, where are you investing your fucks? You only have so many fucks to give. Like, where are they going? And what's the return on investment from those? Emotionally, financially, like we got to be pragmatic here. We live in the real world. Like you got to make a living. You got to take care of yourself. You got to be supported. But looking at that and taking that into consideration, like where are you putting your time, energy, money, your fucks, and what are you getting back out of that? And can you really be objective about what that is? And noticing that you're probably, if you're operating from kind of pre-programmed or handed down belief systems, you're going to be investing a lot into things that aren't really giving you much back, whether that be relationships or friendships or jobs or just time, or just even maybe that's getting sucked into the news or social media or things that really don't inherently have a desire to give back to you. And you don't get that kind of reciprocity through that action. I think that's a really solid indicator of where you're acting out of assumptions and out of expectations.
I love everything Conner said. And for me, I mean, we talk about a lot of the same things, but we just use different languages. So for me, it's getting rid of the noise and the shoulds and the people pleasing mentality. And I think especially as women, that's really where we live most of our lives. And we're just trying to do the next thing to please that person and make sure that we're the good girl. And that doesn't leave a lot of room for our own desires and our own voice to speak up. And so as I have gotten clear on what I want, it took a lot of journaling, and it started with very angry, putting the pen through the sheet of paper because I was so pissed, like getting rid of all these other people's expectations and what I had done to please them. And when I finally got through that aspect and crying and all of that, I finally got to, oh, that's what I want, whether it's in relationship or work or just how I show up in the world. It finally became clear because I got rid of that noise and chaos that had been taking up so much space in my body for so long. And then all of a sudden it was this peace and calm. And then I could finally hear my own gut or intuition, whatever you want to call it, that was leading me to what I wanted. And then the game that I've played with myself over the last 2 years is asking myself why. And so as I peel back the layers, every time I peel back another layer, I ask myself why. So why do you want this? And then when you get to that answer, why? And for me, that helps me get to whether it's the core wound or the core belief or the core desire, so that I can get to the real thing that is causing me to want this or to change this. And it's really helped me understand that almost everything I do, whether it's good, bad, ugly, comes back to these same ideas. And so then I know when I make a decision or I feel a certain way, it's because of this thing. And then I know how to navigate and to show up for myself and to ask for what I want because I understand myself at that basic level.
Yeah, all the way down. The root cause analysis. You know, you're like, what is what's the actual thing that's going on here? You know, so deep down. So, which I think that's a fantastic practice, and like, folks in our nutrition coaching programs are familiar with that. It's like, what's your goal? I want to lose weight. Okay, why? Okay, why? Okay, why? You know what I mean? And then pretty soon they're like, oh, my dad didn't love me when I was a kid or whatever. And you're like, okay, you need to go to authentic self. We'll come back. You know, we'll bring you back to nutrition issues. A little bit later.
It's always
you know, so there's always that kind of thing. But the thing that I've found from my own personal experience with this stuff is that it's kind of a moving target. So I'm curious, like, how you guys go about, you know, reevaluating that what I want, you know, over time. Is it like, do you have, you know, like a quarterly check-in or every other year, or like, what's your thoughts on that?
You know, I think it's not as structured as a quarterly check-in, but I do really appreciate that we have the resources through Soulfire in particular, because of so much of what we do is putting ourselves out there, right? Like with the podcasts and different content outlets. So one thing I've really taken to is if I want to try something, I try it. It doesn't mean it has to be good or perfect. I'll try it and put it out there and see how it feels for me and what the response is, and really checking in with myself through action to see what does that feel like? What does it feel like to do this thing? What does it feel like to try something new? And I'm kind of a seeker of novelty anyways. Like, I think that's a big driver as in my just kind of human behavior. But I think we do a great job of that, is just trying different things out. If you want to do a thing, and one thing I told Kelli when we got into this kind of monogamish situation is just letting yourself feel what you want to feel. So if I feel, for me personally, and the way I bring that into practice, if I feel like I want to try something new or different when it comes to the work that I'm doing, I try it. And just to see, and just to get a taste of it for myself and do the best I can, because I know if I sit on it for long enough, I'll talk myself out of it. Yeah, I'll figure out a way. I'll make an excuse, like, well, I shouldn't do this or I shouldn't do that, and it's a waste of time or whatever. But we do have the ability to try that out, and I think that's been something that's been super helpful for our relationship, for our professional lives. Just getting into a mindset of fuck it, why not? Let's try it, and it's been really fun.
I really love that because, you know, I think this is one of the things that is changing about quote unquote influencers is there's this sense of like, you know, just because you're an expert at one thing doesn't mean that you can't like get out of your lane and try something else. And I think that's what's really cool when I watch you guys is that, you're like, obviously you have a certain compass in which you're really comfortable navigating and things that you really feel in flow with. But you're, like you said, you're not afraid to just try something. And I think it's really helpful for audiences to see the people they look up to trying things, getting out of their comfort zone, like not having an expectation that everything will be a fit or that it'll be a win, but like that you can't, it's okay to be vulnerable in your own experience. And I think, Kelli, you do a really great job of, in particular, of being vulnerable. And I want to tap into that with you, because I think that as I watch you and have watched your message kind of change and grow, I can feel the power from you evolving by tapping into your vulnerability and just, fearlessly sharing that stuff. And I'm so curious of like what that has done for you in your personal journey over the last 6 months to a year of really diving into that like unabashed sense of sharing.
Thank you for saying that. Coming from you, that means the world to me.
Yeah, no, I really see it, and it's really beautiful. It's like very inspiring.
Thank you. Yeah, it's interesting. The thing about Conner and I too is he's been in personal development and spirituality and growth much longer than I have. And I just got into this a year and a half ago, really. And so I feel like, and I'm a very black or white person. So when I do something, I just go all in, and I am like a freight train. I just go as fast as possible. I want all the things right now. And that is a great thing about me, and it also has its downfalls. But I think what that has allowed for me is to have a lot of radical honesty and self-awareness in a very short amount of time. And I'm very willing to admit where I want to grow and when I'm wrong, and take responsibility for that, and just be on this constant state of growth and evolution. And Conner jokes sometimes about me constantly processing, and I do really like to process because I feel like I'm becoming a better person for myself and our relationship and just the way I show up in general. But I think what I learned is that vulnerability is a beautiful strength, and that if me sharing my story helps one person, then it's always worth it. And I for a long time felt very alone. I was suicidal at age 12, was very depressed for a long time, had chronic illness for 14 years, was very isolated, never felt good enough, never felt like I fit in. And I just really believe that making people feel welcome and taken care of and heard and understood is so important, because I never want someone to feel alone, because I know what that feels like. And so as it's come up in whether it's sexuality or spirituality or leaving a job or being in a different type of relationship, I just really believe in being honest, because if it shows one person that there's something else available for them, or if it opens them up to being curious about something about themselves that maybe they're repressing or they're feeling shame about, then it's always worth it. And we're all connected. We're all energy beings connected. And so me going through my process and opening up, maybe that gives permission to someone else to do the same. And I realized when I told everyone I was bisexual, I was so nervous. I was freaking out. I called my brother the night before. I was like, I just want to let you know I'm bisexual. I'm going to tell everybody tomorrow. And he's like, okay. And I was so panicked. And then the response was so overwhelmingly positive. I just laughed at myself and thought, why do I make such a big deal about this stuff? No one cares. And maybe the 2 people that think I'm gross now and unfollow me, it just doesn't matter. But how many people did you then give permission or open their eyes to, oh, this is a thing and it's okay, and maybe I can explore that for myself? So I just don't care anymore if people judge me or don't understand, because it's my truth. It's me being honest about myself, and that's really all that matters.
Amen.
Yeah.
Yeah. I love it.
Well,
Sing it, sister.
And the thing that's crazy about the internet, and like all of this, the amount of our personal lives that gets just kind of broadcast, is that I think that we have a very real tendency as humans to just be kind of like guarded about ourselves to some degree, because typically, even 10 years ago, like if you were to say something like that, you'd really only be telling the closest people around you, like the ones that, that you really do care about their feedback. And I think that's like that's been in our DNA forever. Like you don't want to be ostracized from the group, because that's how you survive. And in this weird world of the internet now, not only like, I think there was definitely a period of time where like you were really nervous to put something out because the trolls are just insane, but now there's so much noise out there that like the trolls are just feeding on like mainstream stuff. You know what I mean? All the time. All this
They're over coronavirus. Yeah.
Yeah. And so you can just put it out there and like, honestly, to cut through any of that noise and reach people with the message, like what you're talking about, Kelli. It's like, you almost have to be just as black and white as possible. Like, this is what's up, world, blah. And there's so many people are be like, I don't really get it. And it's going to fly right by and they're going to go troll somewhere else. But those handful of people that really connect with that message, it's going to be incredibly meaningful because, there's just so much going on out there. So I think it's a super weird time to be sharing, like everything that we have going on in our lives. But I also think it's incredibly important, like probably more important now than it ever has been, to just, fly the flag and get in the mix with stuff so that people don't get like, this homogenized message that really then makes them feel smaller and more isolated,
Yeah, and people just don't know that's okay. The reason I realized so much of this was okay was from listening to podcasts. I remember when I was in the middle of quitting my old job and moving on to this new life, I was just walking. I just took walks every day and I would listen to podcasts for hours and hours. And these girls would just talk about so many vulnerable, honest things. And I was like, oh my God, I've never been allowed to share anything ever because my bosses told me I wasn't allowed to talk about anything. And so, my parents very much kept things, under the rug, and you don't talk about this stuff, and we put on a happy face and this is how it looks. So I just didn't know that it was even allowed. And then I walked into fucking Pandora's box, and now I realize like that's where the goodness is. That's where the honesty and connection is. And if we don't have people having those honest conversations, whatever it's about, then people just don't know that it's possible. It's like re-educating society on what we're allowed to do.
Totally. I love that. And, you guys have obviously both had a deep connection and experience with ayahuasca and plant medicine. And I'm just curious, like, I'd love to hear from you, Kelli, and then Conner as well. But like, it's my assumption, I have this idea and this story about you, and correct me if I'm wrong, that you probably didn't grow up in a family where ayahuasca was one of the things that was presented as an option.
Not so much.
So I'm curious if, how that came into your horizon and what the moment was where you decided that might be a path for you that could open up a potential exploration of healing.
Yeah. So I'm not sure if you guys know of Jordan Younger. She goes by the Balanced Blonde. And Jordan's a really good friend of mine. And we both had chronic illness at the same time. She's still on her journey with that. And we have the same doctors and we've worked with a lot of the same healers. And she came to me and said she was doing ayahuasca and I didn't know anything about it. And around that same time, my Ayurvedic doctor had been bringing up ayahuasca. And so I started looking into it, and what I realized is that I had taken myself so far. I had worked in so many ways holistically to clear my body, to do personal development, and I had done a lot of great work, but I just felt like there was something missing and that there was not another level to go to. I don't really think of it that way, but like I couldn't cross over this bridge. Like I needed more assistance to make sense of myself and my body and my experience. And ayahuasca, as you guys know, just called me. I just felt very called to it. And I went to my first ceremonies in Santa Cruz with this amazing couple, Dennis and Kristen, and it was about 20 people in a yurt in the forest, and it was so beautiful. And we sat for 3 nights, and it blew my world wide open. I went in without any expectations. My intention was, I surrender, show me what I'm meant to see, because I honestly had no idea what I was getting myself into. So I'm like, I'm just going to go in like this and we'll see what happens. And the way I describe it is, I felt like I had a lot of puzzle pieces of my life that I couldn't put together, and that there were pieces missing, and that weekend my puzzle came together and more of the pieces that I couldn't find were found. And I understood myself and my experience in a way that I never had before. And I had a very orgasmic experience. I think the second night I went through my birth again and saw all the trauma that came from that and being separated from my mom because she was dying. And there was just all these things that really helped me understand myself and my experience, and feeling like I wasn't good enough and rejected. And I just remember like crying so hard and having these people hold me, and the access that I had to things that I never had before was so profound. And from there, I just knew that plant medicine was something that I had to and was really called to work with. And so after that, I did Conner's retreat at Soltara in Costa Rica a couple months later. I did mushrooms with him for the first time, which was really, really opening. And I did combo a couple times. So I feel like plant medicine for me is, I mean, of course, just so opening for my heart, but it really just helps me understand myself and where I come from and how I'm connected. And it allows me access to places that I never had before.
God bless the mother.
Right? So
she's just the shit, man.
Yes. In every way.
She gets me. Yeah.
She totally gets me. Yeah, it's so fun because, you know, like we had taken some women to Rhythmia actually this last year, and I was trying to explain just how cool she is. Like, you don't get it. She's like the coolest chick you've ever hung out with, you know? And it's like just to be in her presence and just to, you know, experience the vastness of what she can create in emotionally is just so amazing. And so I connect so deeply with what you're saying. So Conner, I want to ask you about your experience together at Soltara, because you guys obviously had been spending time together and like had been starting your budding romance. But what was that like when you guys shared those ceremonies at Soltara together?
Oh, those were so fun. And it's even before,
take me back.
It's funny because even before Kelli was down at Soltara with me when I had the retreat down there, I had gone down to check the place out, as similar to how you guys did with Rhythmia. Like we went down and make sure everything was what we were looking for, and to figure out how the retreat would work and what we wanted to do with the programming. And one of the nights, I believe it was the second night of 4, I actually saw Kelli before I met her. I didn't realize who it was. I just saw this figure, this woman figure with like dark hair down her back, and it was just standing in this certain way. And then when we finally started hanging out like in real life and we met in person, the first time we slept together, Kelli like looked at me a certain way, and I was like, I've seen that. But I had this really weird deja vu, and I was like, oh my God,
whoa.
I saw you on ayahuasca.
Yeah.
So trippy.
So interesting. But then we had been together for just a few months whenever the retreat happened. And I don't know if you have had the similar experience, but when we sit in the Maloka and you're close with somebody, have an energetic connection with somebody, you generally sit far apart. So we were basically on opposite sides of the Maloka. So as far as really seeing and knowing what the other person was going through, we didn't have a lot of that. And since I was facilitating, I wasn't facilitating the actual ceremony, but other stuff outside of the ceremony at the retreat, I was only doing a facilitator dose, and I was with my dear friend Mike Salemi was there facilitating with me as well. So we were only doing about half to a third of a cup. And you always hear these stories about how ayahuasca isn't dose dependent, right? Like,
yeah,
this one time, this really big guy did a little bit and he had the crazy experience, and a little bitty woman did a bunch and didn't have any experience, you know? And I was like, yeah, I mean, that's cool, but those are outliers, right? Like it's kind of dose dependent. And the second night out of the 3 that we had down there on this most recent retreat, completely just blasted off in a way that I don't understand. Did some serious deep work on my dad's side of things, and I don't remember much of it. But I don't normally purge that much, and I was purging the whole time. I would like come to and feel the rim of the bucket like on my face because I had somehow known to get my face, like use it like a pillow and just kind of go for it. But every time after I'd purge, I would feel Kelli in a really intense way, and I would like hold my hand out and I would just say, thank you, baby, like over and over again. And then I would go back into my experience, which was one of those experiences that was super dark. And it was almost like I didn't really need to know what was going on, but there was a lot of work being done. And that was one of those experiences. And then we were walking back. I don't know, I'll let you pick it up from here, Kelli. We were walking back to we slept in different rooms too most nights. So we definitely had our own space, but we were walking back to our sleeping quarters.
Yeah. And I was kind of recapping my night, and I said, babe, it was so wild. I would go deep into my experience, and I, was somewhere else. And then all of a sudden I would feel him, I would feel his hands on my body, and it was like he was calling me back. And so it was like me being called back by Conner and him bringing me home. And then all of a sudden I would get up off of my, my little pad and be on my knees, and I would just look at him and I would reach my hand out to him and I would just say, thank you, baby. Whoa. So that whole night we were going back and forth in our experience saying, thank you, baby. Thank you, baby. It was so amazing.
Wow.
That's a trip.
Yeah.
And so
that was a pretty profound night.
Yeah. And so were there witnesses? Like, were there people that were like, yeah, I saw you guys doing this thing?
No.
Okay.
I mean, it's pitch black in there. So
well, yeah, pitch black. And I think, there was also, I think that night was the night that you can tell whenever the ayahuasca starts doing its work, you can feel where that night's going to go. Yeah. And that night in particular went for everybody was no one was paying attention to anybody else.
Yeah.
it was all internal.
Yeah.
It was a pretty dark experience for everybody, but in a really deep way. And then that next night we came through and it kind of tied the bow on it as it normally does. But that was a really heavy experience, but getting blindsided by a third of a cup like that was not.
Totally.
Lesson learned.
All right.
So you guys have said a couple of times you've mentioned your monogamish relationship, and I'm just curious what that looks like for you guys. And curious not just as like a peeping Tom wanting to peep in and see what's going on.
Vanessa, if you want to come watch, it's fine.
I do, actually. But more like what does this represent for you in your life? Like, what is this opening up for you, and what is this creating for you as an expansion, not only in your relationship but in your individual selves?
Yeah, I mean, going into this relationship, I had kind of pre-decided that I really wanted to date someone that was interested in women, and I knew that was a great starting place for a relationship that accepts the evolving that's going to happen. Mm-hmm. And I think once you're in a relationship, and a lot of times you have this idea, or it's a common kind of narrative that the way the relationship starts, and it's great, it's amazing, and you have this whole experience, it's going to stay that way forever. And I quickly realized in my adult life that was not really how things go. Mm-hmm. And if you don't accept and acknowledge the evolution of relationships, then you're kind of dead in the water. It's just a matter of time until resentment builds and things get really sticky. So I had known that going in, and my intention being, I want to create space for this relationship to evolve. And I also don't want to feel, I want to feel like that's something that was really important for me to share with my partner, was an attraction to women, as shallow as that may feel. And that was really kind of bucking some shoulds there as far as how appropriate that was, and questioning how selfish that may be. But whenever Kelli and I first started talking, she was like, I'm done with men. I'm only dating women now. And I was like, oh, really?
Interesting.
Tell me more.
Yeah.
It was one of those things that she was joking, but I was like, are you joking?
Yeah,
clearly
right.
I didn't know though.
Yeah, and then I think Kelli can actually speak more to how it evolved in our relationship and what's gone on your end.
Yeah, I mean, it wasn't like a one-time sit down where I sat him down and said, "Hey, Conner, I want to hook up with a woman," but it really just organically happened throughout conversations where I was doing more self-exploration. It came up during ayahuasca a few times. It was one of my intentions on one of the nights to. I asked. Why do I feel attracted to women, and what is it that I need to see there? And so I went through this whole experience of going back to my soul home, and I saw I was in this feminine energy and everyone was connected and it was all women and we were all just blobs of energy. And I realized that I'm attracted to other women because we are the same. We're all connected. And so as I started doing more exploration with that, we had more conversations. We started talking about what a threesome would look like. And I, of course, had full on fucking meltdowns and panic attacks. And I was like, absolutely not. I cannot watch you touch another woman. I will lose my shit. Like, this is no way. And then we slowly just kept talking about it. And Conner was very patient, and he knew it was something I wanted and that I was just really scared and felt a lot of shame around. And so he really held space so well for the most part. And finally, we talked about it, and he really kind of took the reins on helping make it happen, because I definitely would have not done that. And it happened. And what I think that we've gotten out of this dynamic is that I so deeply desire feminine connection, being held by a woman, being touched by a woman. And it feeds my soul in a way that a man never could. It's not even comparable. So it's not like Conner needs to feel bad because he doesn't do this thing and he is unable to perform this whatever I need. It's that I just need that feminine energy and that feminine touch. And one time after we had an experience, I came downstairs and I looked at him and I was like, holy shit, I didn't know how badly I needed that. There's a part of me that is just so drawn to it and just feels so full when I have that connection. And so I think for me, that's what it does for me. And then Conner, I mean, you can speak to this, but it's more of novelty and sharing that experience together.
Yeah. I mean, for me, it is a really fun experience to share together. And I think for the third person too, one of the things I feel oftentimes gets overlooked when you think about threesomes and opening things up in that way is that the other person gets objectified almost immediately.
Right.
It's like they don't need to stay the night and then this and that. And you end up being like, it's like if you zoom out a little bit, you sound kind of like a fuckboy being like, oh no, you can't stay the night. I don't want you to catch feelings, right? And you don't want to be, so there's a lot of respect as well. And honestly, the people that we attract into the relationship, I think get so much out of it as far as feeling respected and that their desires are appreciated. And I know that's a very vulnerable thing for someone who hasn't been with a couple before to experience. And there's a lot of question marks and boundaries. So I felt like it's been there's a lot of reciprocity in that as well. Like it's very beneficial for everybody, and everybody feels respected and appreciated, and like their desires aren't wrong or shameful. And I feel like that's been a huge made a huge impact on our relationship.
Yeah. And I think too, Conner's been amazing. So from the very get-go, he said, I think you should be with a woman on your own without me there, without the pressure and feeling like you have to perform or have me involved and not knowing what's going to happen. And I did have that experience after we had already been with someone. And it was so beautiful. She's one of my dearest friends. And it was so nice to be able to have that with someone without him there, knowing that, of course, I had his permission. He knew it was happening. But it was really a way for me to explore something that I had never had before and feel very safe and very seen, and that it wasn't going to have a bad impact on our relationship, that I didn't have to leave the relationship or do something shady in order to have this experience. But he was so supportive. And I think that was so important for us. And in all of this, it's really about creating safety and freedom and space. And I feel like because of this, our relationship has gotten so much better because our communication has to be on point. Our boundaries in every aspect of our relationship have to be great. It impacts the way we operate in every part, whether it's business or walking the dogs or grocery shopping. I really feel like it is the catalyst for so much of what we do.
Yeah, the forced necessity of communication is it's a really interesting thing. You know, it's like there's one level, which is being in a relationship, right? So you have to have that. And then being in business together, there's like another layer. And then having an open relationship is a whole nother level of forced realness and communication, you know? And I think
absolutely.
Kudos to you guys for giving it a whirl in such an open and I think thoughtful and present way from what I'm
and in a public way too, because that's what is occurring to me is I'm like, this is a lot to process and to navigate on your own, let alone taking it to the airwaves every week. And so guys, this is what we're figuring out. And, but it's funny because when I think about when I met you, Conner, you have something about you that is like, I don't know. I'm going to give it a go of explaining it, but I'm not sure words will do it justice. But there's something about you that is very confident in the way you are about things. And it's like, I know, of course, you probably have your core wounds or places that are like you're navigating, but there's something about you that you're okay with being honest about what you want and who you are and what you're going through. And it's like, that's always just occurred to me that you're very open about that. And so I could see for you, Kelli, how that would be a really helpful pillar for you kind of navigating a new compass for yourself. And so it just feels to me like I don't know. I'm looking at this painting in my mom's house and there's just like the center pillar and there's all these flowers around it. And I feel like that's very much what I'm getting from you guys is that Conner can be this kind of stable pillar while Kelli can like blossom and flower around it. Does that feel right?
Yeah, that's very sweet.
That's so beautiful. Actually, I really do feel like that embodies what we have. And I say this all the time. I was talking about it in my ayahuasca experience. Conner always brings me back home. And I think we both do a really good job of being stable for one another, allowing each other to go play, to go explore, to go be, whether it's blasting off to the ethereal or, going and out into the mountains for days on end. Like, it doesn't matter what that is, but we always bring each other home. And I think Conner has been such a pillar and such a source of strength and an example for me in a lot of ways. And I do feel like I have blossomed and sort of enveloped him within that and that feminine energy, which I think has been so helpful and satisfying for him, and where that really strong masculine energy and that stability has been integral in my growth and my ability to feel safe.
That's beautiful. Yeah. And I mean, I know a little bit about your story, Conner, and like you're growing up and your mom and sort of those maternal wounds maybe that are there for you. And I could see how beautiful Kelli's presence in your life would be for healing some of that stuff.
Yeah. I mean, it's having challenges with that mom relationship, which has been a struggle for the majority of my life. And I feel like it's kind of healed now, thanks to a decade of work and frustration. But
Yeah.
No, I think one of the things that I always try to question myself, and maybe this is why I give that confidence or stability off, is because I do try and really constantly reconcile what's logical and what I think with what I feel, which don't necessarily have to line up completely. But I think that when there is a big gap, when there's incongruencies between what you think or how you think you're being perceived or how you think you're showing up and how you feel you need to be seen, there is a lot of work involved in kind of bridging the gap between the two. And I find that really my favorite process in personal development is really this critical thinking of oneself and trying to live an examined life. And if we can look at that thing and you can find the parts of that journey that really resonate with you, I mean, humor and not this idea that the things aren't that serious, right? And even within this kind of monogamish situation, like Kelli has the Bumble account and has our photos on there and she's like chatting with girls and then she'll show me their conversations. And it just adds this kind of fun exploration to it. And if things are going like a day's going shitty, it gives us something to like laugh about. That's not super heavy. And that's been really nice too. And there is something about living this examined life that gives you a little bit of freedom and kind of liberates you in a way to have more fun if you can find those nuggets in there that really matter to you.
I love that. Yeah, it's such a great description. So Kelli, earlier you mentioned asking the whys, like keep asking why. And I'm curious, like as an overall sort of synopsis of when you really ask the question why in your life, like what is your main reason for who you are? And I mean, like, what is the main thing you really feel like you are meant to express or create in your life? And I'll start with Kelli, but I want to hear it from you, Conner, too, of what your why, your true core why is.
Wow. No one has ever asked me that before.
It's actually really interesting to consider. And when you talked about it, I've thought about this before and I thought, what it really comes down to for me is fun. Like I am absolutely here on the planet Earth to have fun, to figure out how to make the lightness or the darkness lighter, the difficult easier. Like it's like I want to create more fun in the world as a general thing. And so I'm curious if there's that thing that is really, really powerful for you to create here. What
just keeps like echoing over and over in my head is coming home. And I think that, the most important thing for me is to be of service. That is what fills my soul. And I know that's why I'm here and what I'm meant to do. And within being of service, not only to others, but to myself, that feels like coming home to myself and my truth, and working with plant medicine has allowed me to see that. And even, past life regressions and seeing where I've been and understanding myself in that way, and knowing that I am this medicine woman and warrior woman and goddess, and creating that safety and that sense of home within my own body, and allowing myself to come back to myself, but also teaching that to others. I think that is the overarching theme for everything that I do, is teaching you to come back home to yourself, into that knowing, into that intuition, into that trusting of who you are and where you've been, and feeling that desire and that connectedness within yourself.
Yummy. It feels good. I mean, it's beautiful. How about you, Conner?
It's such a big question, and what I like to do with myself, and I've gone through so many iterations of professional life and different styles of relationships and belief systems. What that's really given me is a lot of perspective and a real desire to just share curiosity. I think curiosity and perspective are really the roots of empathy and understanding. And I've let that really lead me in everything I've done, whether it be coaching, strength and conditioning, to talking about personal development, to now like political and social issues. Like at the end of the day, it all comes down to human behavior and how can we really share perspective and infuse an air of curiosity into our lives on a daily basis. And that to me transcends so many really subtopics, and more lets us wrestle with the question of what are we doing, why are we doing it, and where are we spending our time and energy. And that's been really, if I look back and just let the evidence guide me, like that's kind of been the driver in my life.
Yeah, I love that. I mean, it's just like, it's such a fun place to get curious, this whole planet Earth.
Yeah, right.
There's a lot going on. Yeah, there's a hell of a lot going on, and it's like, you don't really need to make up very many stories, like when the reality is so bizarre.
Yeah,
right.
Just watch the Tiger King if you need evidence.
Exactly.
On one hand you got Tiger King, and on the other hand you have, what was that Netflix show,
the new one
that we watched on psychedelics the other night?
I forget.
It's freaking
it's
brilliant.
So amazing.
It's like, I don't know. Anyway,
you have to tell
Netflix,
us when you remember. I want to watch it.
Yeah, you're just like, this is the kind of television that's available, and people are choosing to watch Fox News. Like, it's unbelievable.
Don't get Conner started, please.
Or CNN or whatever. Any of them. I think they all suck in my view. But it's damn, dude, what's going on around here?
Oh, it's called Have a Good Trip: Adventures in Psychedelics. Yeah. You guys have to.
We're gonna have to do that later.
It's brilliant.
Yeah, I'm about to do mushrooms after we get off of this and go on my own trip.
Yeah,
so.
Kelly's got a friend coming over, and they're doing mushrooms and doing their hypnosis class together.
Yeah. Nice.
I love it, dude. I love it.
Well, kudos for you guys living in a city with decriminalization of
Amen.
Yeah, exactly. You're so woke over there.
Oh yeah, we're the most woke.
Denver is such a cool place.
Yeah, we can't wait to come visit you guys. We have good friends that live there too. So as soon as
missed you.
Yeah, I know. Like we were in LA, just kind of ships passing, and then
like, wait, you guys are great.
Wait,
you're moving?
you're leaving?
No, we're moving. All right, well, let's see.
So what's next for you guys? What are you guys most excited about, and what are you getting curious about next?
Well, we've really been kind of reprioritizing a lot. The coronavirus has done this whole kind of quarantine. I mean, and I'm not sure if y'all have seen the same thing, but I've realized that my podcast is a lot of a commuter experience. So with the decrease in commuters, like things have just kind of given cut in half, and it's been one like this kind of rechecking of where I'm putting my time and what kind of metrics I'm using to rationalize the work that I'm doing. And I put all my coaching on hold. So it's been this really open process of trying to figure out where is time best served, and where can we stay in alignment with what we want to be doing with our lives while still while accommodating the new situation that we're in.
Yeah. And I think that's allowed us. So Conner's show has definitely changed. And as he shifted into his new show, Conner Wanders, and that's really where he's put a lot of his time, which is amazing. This is allowed for that. And I think for us focusing on our production company, Soulfire Productions, and putting a lot of our time into our shows that we're launching. We're in the middle of launching 3 podcasts right now, and really working to find ways to help our shows grow. So whether that's increasing their social following, doing things like TikTok, really getting clear on what the messaging is, reworking strategy. That's really helped a lot of our shows grow during this time and help them reach the right type of listeners. And so we're just constantly trying to find what's new, what's working, analyze the numbers, and get really clear on how we can all support our listeners in a new and different way, given the times, and be of service throughout that. So we're just excited to be of service to all of our hosts, and it's exciting to be able to grow as a company given this time. And it's something we believe so deeply in, and their voices and how important they are in the personal development and wellness space, and supporting so many people across the world who want to have that sort of introspective, growth-minded life. So yeah, that's kind of where we are right now.
Awesome. I love it. I mean, yeah, we're in such an interesting time with, everything that's going on with Facebook and YouTube and all of the, what's the word I'm looking for? Censorship. Yeah, thank you. It's just like this interesting dichotomy of like so many amazing voices out there. And then this other side of it, this pendulum swinging where it's just like this sense of wanting to shut down so many voices. And so I think it's so important that we really do support the voices out there, and that we give space and airtime to the people who we resonate with and that are speaking the message that is so important for all of us to hear. So amen to you. Love what you guys are up to. Love you guys. Think you're just so amazing. And I'm so happy for you guys to have found each other. It really is a beautiful gift to find your person, someone that you can share this journey with, and that you can ignite yourself within each other. And I see that for both of you. Obviously, soul fire is a perfect word for that.
Yep. Thank you so much. We love you guys, and you're such an incredible example. And Conner spoke so highly of you before I ever met you. And I feel like you guys have just really paved the way for younger couples that are newer in their relationship to understand that you can veer off the path. You can make it your own. And that's really beautiful, the way you guys give permission to so many of us. So thank you.
Thank
awesome.
you. That's beautiful. It's good to be an elder.
I didn't mean old like old. I meant less time together.
I love it, actually. No, it's like such a badge of honor for us to be like, yeah, dude, we did it. Like, we went through it. And it is so cool to see younger couples
still making
whether in age or just in their relationships, to like see that it doesn't have to be any way other than the way you make it, and that like the love is the most important thing.
Yes. Amen.
Yeah.
Amen.
Awesome. Well, where can folks find you guys? And are you guys going to do any more retreats when we come out of the SIP era?
We'll see. It's all up in the air right now.
Yeah.
We don't even know. I mean, to be completely honest, we don't even know if the retreat center that we work with is going to make it through. So we'll see. Yeah. I mean, there's so many question marks up in the air, but I would definitely, some type of event is on the horizon somewhere, but it's as far as when or how or what that's going to be, we have to kind of dampen our expectations a little bit.
Yeah. But you can find us on social. Conner's at Conner Wanders. I'm at Kelli M. Tennant. He hosts The Realness. I host The Kelli Show. And we're at
host OK Babe.
Yeah, we host OK Babe. We do too many things. And then we're at soulfireproductions.com.
Awesome,
we'll
guys.
put links to all that stuff down below.
Thanks for being with us, you guys. We love you.
Thanks, we
y'all.
love you too.
Yeah, buddy. That's it, folks. I hope you guys dug that podcast. That was a whole wild ride of, poor people talking about
Conner.
stuff. Yeah.
Yeah, we love those guys. They're great. And it's, it's really fun for us because we kind of do feel a little like big brother, big sister to them, because like they're, what'd we say, 10 years our junior. Yeah. And so it's just fun. It's almost like a reflection of where we were 10 years ago. And it just kind of brings us back in a way to parts of our journey and parts of our relationship. And it's just, it's really sweet to connect with those guys.
Yeah, for sure. And it's amazing what you can learn from these younger generations.
From this youth.
From the youth. The kids these days. Even though, if you're 70, you're like 10 years is nothing. It really is different. Vanessa and I are both like on the generational cusp.
We are.
Right? We're very much in the Gen X.
Yeah.
But there's some people who are kind of more millennial-ish in our world. And, and so it's really interesting. 10 years younger than a Gen Xer is really a different kind of take. And I thoroughly enjoy their take on this whole thing.
I love it.
Cool.
I love it. They're just like, they're challenging systems, they're challenging thought processes, and they're being really, like you said, they're being authentic and they're being integrity about who they are and what they're up to. And I just respect that. Mad respect to them, mad love to them. If they're listening, we love you guys, and make sure to go check out their shows. And if you enjoyed this podcast, if you're enjoying Be the Wellness podcast, now is the time to swipe down, give us 5 stars, leave a review, subscribe to the podcast so you never miss a beat. You never miss all of this fun action that's coming on over here at Be the Wellness. We've really made this commitment in these episodes 200 to 300 that we are so committed to bringing you some epic quality content. Not that we weren't before, but like we are super almost re-energized and reinvigorated about, bringing on a diverse spread of content and really keeping it unique and inventive for you guys, because we feel the same way when we listen to other podcasts. Sometimes we feel like they sort of stay too much in one niche and we're kind of like, okay, yeah, we get it, but now what? So we're trying to be that now what for you.
Yeah. So now what?
So subscribe to the podcast and we'll see you back next week. We'll see you guys soon. Love you. Bye.